So we started off with my own style. So I wanted a baseline before I did all the others of what I can experience and what I can draw at this moment, because this exercise is really to teach me how other artists and designers make their shapes and their shading and their coloring and just their overall technique. So I wanted to do something of what I know so far. So I kind of use an amalgamation of two different references to try to make this pose as unique as possible. I'm really bad at making really dead poses or coffin poses, and I wanted to do something a little more dynamic, a little more out of the shape of something a little more natural. And so far, it was probably one of my weakest designs for my character. I will admit that. Mostly just because my style isn't really defined yet. I'm still working on it quite a bit, so I want to try to make something a little more unique going in the future, which is why we're going up into our next design here, which is Persona 5. So right after this design, we're working on Persona 5. And I love Persona games. I've loved them since a very young age, and I feel like Persona has had such a unique inspiration on my art. I think that Persona 3 being my favorite game from a very young age has definitely had some sort of way of making me feel about darker shading and kind of more unique posing. Since the Persona games have always been very unique in the way that they pose their characters and design them in such a way that you feel a uniqueness with each one. Especially with the dark shading. I went with Persona 5 just because Persona 5 is one of those games where I've played it probably a few dozen times now. I've replayed it as many times as need be just because I thought Persona 5 was one of the best games out there for its time frame. And I love the unique style that it bring to the table. So as you can see, I am copying for the most part the posing. That's just saving me some time for this challenge, mostly because I still need to practice unique posing. And if I can practice using posing that I can see already, then I can then go from there, being able to do other things. You know, I still need to practice some of the basics, but for the most part, I think that I definitely have a better understanding after doing this challenge, especially this one specifically. I think this is probably my favorite piece out of this video so far that I did. And for the reason being is that I really got out of my comfort zone making this piece with the darker shading and the blue highlights. I think that I definitely got to learn a lot about different body shapes, especially with the way that they do things. It's so, I wouldn't say angular. I would definitely say that they choose very specific thinner style with thin outlines, deep two-tone shading, and just overall good high light colors. They choose a lot of lighter tones with really dark ones to make an eye-popping character design. And my character has blue jeans and blue shirt. So really the only thing that pops out are my eyes and the color of the hair, which is totally fine with me in this piece just because it was practice. I wanted to know exactly how they got that done, and I learned a lot from doing it. So going forward, I kind of can take some of the things I learned from this image and go forward with it. And as you can see, I'm going to slowly start putting them all together. Then I went to the gorillas. The gorillas have been in my life since a very young age as well. And it was such a unique idea to have an animated band. Now, this is probably my weakest design out of the whole bunch. And that was just purely because the creator of the gorillas, the artistic creator of the gorillas, he has such a unique style, mixing such real looking clothing with such animated characters. And the way his style works isn't uniquely pretty. It is pretty grotesque in some ways, the way he designs some of the characteristics of the character. Especially Murdoch or Tootie, those two definitely have some pretty drastic design choices, which I kind of used both of their design choices for this picture. But in the end, it didn't translate well with my character, just purely because I didn't understand the style as well as I tried to use. I should have researched more into it before making this design, I will admit that, but I do think there are elements that I do like about it. I think the stiff posing only really worked with the guitar, but everything else worked well. And then Pokemon, how could you not use Pokemon? I started with Emerald, Ruby or Sapphire if you use the other two versions of the game. And from there, Pokemon has been in my life my entire life. I've played all the new games, I keep playing the games, and so I've always loved the idea of being in the Pokemon world, and I love the style for its simplicity and just the uniqueness of some of the coloring choices, because it's very clear that it's a more painterly look than cell shaded or any other kind of shading. They definitely blend colors better in their art depictions of Pokemon trainers. And as you can see, I used Gary as a reference, or Blue, depending on how you look at that character. But I really liked how this one turned out. I think that the shading could have gone a little better, but overall, I think the piece was pretty strong in copying the pose. And I think that my character really popped with the Pokemon design versus, per se, the Gorilla's design. And then, going forward from this design, I went ahead and did, one moment. I'm just looking over real quick all the different styles I've done. And then I moved on to Mob Psycho. Mob Psycho was more of an inspiration animation wise, because while it had such a simplistic design of characters, the animation and the animation team that made Mob Psycho did a phenomenal job making such smooth, clean animation that I absolutely adored through the series. Now, I love the simplicity of the designs just purely because they translated well when animating them. And I think that's the most important part for an art style, is if you're trying a certain medium, it needs to translate well into that medium. And I think that this went really well over. I definitely enjoyed drawing this piece in particular, as well as the Persona one, just purely because it felt fun. I definitely think that there are certain ones that I felt were fun, and I felt like that had a huge to do with everything around me when I was making these pieces. And then going on from that, My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia is such a unique piece of artwork because the creator had such a big influence from comic books, American comic books, which is why he had such a unique shonen style to the animation and to the design of the manga. So I chose My Hero Academia not particularly because it's a huge influence on me, but because it's a huge influence on just the art style and the culture of the art that he's making. And I think that has a good impact on other creators wanting to make something unique like this as well. He showed that you can take elements from other cultures and put it into something that is mainstream from another country and make something good and make something everybody can enjoy. So he definitely made a piece of art that I really enjoyed making, and I wanted to try to copy something in a similar style. I don't think I quite got the right things. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I didn't do the proper research to change the pen settings. I feel like if I had different pens for each of these styles to match the line work a little better, then the shading would have accompanied it better. But I think overall, I liked how all of these people were coming together. This next piece is Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is a new love in my life, but it's probably one of my favorite things right now, manga-wise and anime-wise. The anime has made such a big impact purely because the anime is beautiful and animated perfectly. And the manga is great because the manga translates it so well that they can do a one-for-one with the anime. And the storyline is just incredible. So it has been a more creative influence on my recent actions. I love action anime, and I love just the uniqueness of every style for action anime. So I just had to draw this out. I definitely think it's one of the weaker designs in this challenge, but I loved every second of drawing it. And I want to give Jujutsu Kaisen another go in terms of drawing, because I'm going to be following the series until it ends. But I definitely think that I could have done a lot better with this design. I feel like the eyes were a mistake on my part. I also think that the color palette could have been a lot better chosen. But overall, I think that I learned a lot from drawing these unique shapes as well, because especially the folding of the clothing had such a hard time for me, just purely because I'm drawing things now that I've never drawn before. So I'm getting to a point where this is all coming together as pretty slowly, but pretty concurrently with each style I did, because I did this in a period of 4 to 5 hours, all these pieces, which normally I would try to give more time for each piece, but I needed to get this video together a little faster, so I wanted to try to make it as well as I could within the time limit given to me. So I definitely tried my best, but I want to revisit these someday and definitely redraw them and see how they go from there. But there's only a couple more styles after this, and this is probably one of the weakest ones, but I definitely think that there's so much to learn from this art style that you can take away for clean and concurrent animation and art design. I love the ambiance of the outfit, and I think altogether it's coming together. Now, I chose Fire Force for the art style challenge, but I did not choose Fire Force because of the show or the manga. Even though I love the show and the manga and I feel like they're an incredible piece, what I really chose was the style of the author of the manga, mostly because I am a huge Soul Eater fan. I love Soul Eater and most of the works from the creator of Soul Eater and Fire Force, so I wanted to try to use Fire Force as a base, but overall I think I wanted to just pay homage to the creator's style in general as it developed, because this style is very similar to Soul Eater but had unique differences that I really enjoyed. I definitely think that I had some anatomy issues, just mostly because I used two different characters layouts, one thinner, one thicker. And as I've said before, I just don't have a great understanding of the anatomy yet. So I went ahead and just try to make a middle ground. I think there's some awkward shapes in this design, but next time I'm definitely gonna be going forward with a much more concurrent and strong-headed design that will work better for Fire Force. But I grew up with Soul Eater. Soul Eater was such a big step for me, and from there it was easy to pick this character design, honestly, just mostly because he has such a unique style, and he has proven time and time again by using his unique sort of style that you don't have to make things so visually appealing all the time. You can make things look more unique, and you can get away with that as long as it looks good. And then from there was two more styles that I did. I went with a style from Tyson Hesse, which you can see here, but there was some corruptions in the files, so you're not going to get able to see the finished product of this go as you go along, or the last one, which was Log Horizon. But they both mean a lot to me, and I want to come back to them because it was an injustice that the recordings got messed up. But you're going to be able to see the last pick at the end here, where they all come together, and you're going to see every style all as a group. And I was really proud of how I did it at the end of this, honestly. I really liked how they all turned out overall. I think that they all are very unique and they all stood out enough for me. And overall, I just really enjoyed this challenge in this time to be able to learn all these different sort of styles and techniques. And going forward, I will be doing this a lot more. If you liked the video, then please subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.